Welcome back to Mr. Harrington's Stories. If you're just joining us, you need to go watch part 1 first, because what you're about to witness is the explosive conclusion to a war 8 years in the making. When we left off, Alexander had just met his son for the first time. Elijah climbed into his father's wheelchair, and for one perfect moment, it seemed like maybe, just maybe, this broken family could piece itself back together. But Victoria Sterling wasn't done. Not by a long shot. What Alexander and Simone didn't know was that Victoria had been watching them, documenting them, planning her next move. And she was about to escalate this war in ways that would put their son's life in danger. So if you're ready to see how this family takes down a woman who's already committed attempted murder, if you want to witness justice finally being served, if you need to know whether love can truly survive 8 years of lies and manipulation, then settle in. Because part 2 is about to get intense. Let's get back to the story. The DNA test takes 3 days. 3 days that feel like 3 years, stretched thin by anticipation and fear and hope that neither Simone nor Alexander will admit out loud. 3 days during which the world narrows down to a single question hanging in the balance, waiting for science to confirm what their hearts already know. Alexander doesn't waste those 3 days. Within hours of meeting Elijah, within hours of holding his son for the first time, he's making calls. Private security firms that cater to people who have enemies with resources. Men who look like corporate bodyguards in their dark suits and earpieces, but who are trained for so much more than opening car doors and checking credentials. Former Secret Service. Ex-military. The kind of people who know how to keep a 7-year-old boy safe from threats he shouldn't even have to imagine. 2 of them are stationed outside Elijah's school within 24 hours. Another follows Simone to work, discreet but present. A 4th does periodic sweeps of her apartment building, checking for surveillance equipment, for anything out of place, for signs that someone else is watching. Simone wants to protest the invasion, wants to say it's too much, too paranoid, too controlling. But then she remembers Victoria's smile in those old photographs from Whitmore Industries galas, cold and calculating even in celebration. She remembers Alexander's face when he said Victoria tried to kill him. And she keeps her mouth shut and lets the bodyguards do their job. Elijah, for his part, thinks the security detail is the coolest thing that's ever happened to him. He asks the guards 1,000 questions during those 3 days. What's your favorite color? Do you know karate? Have you ever been in a real fight? Can you teach me how to throw a punch? The guards, trained to be invisible and silent, find themselves charmed despite their professionalism. One of them, a former Marine named Rodriguez, starts teaching Elijah basic self-defense moves in the apartment hallway, much to Simone's horror and Alexander's quiet approval. Alexander himself spends those 3 days with Elijah whenever Simone will allow it, which turns out to be more than she expected. He comes to the apartment in the evenings after Elijah's homework is done, wheeling through the door with the kind of determination that used to close billion-dollar deals. And he asks questions. So many questions. What's your favorite color? Blue, like the ocean, like the sky, like his father's eyes, though Elijah doesn't say that part out loud. Do you like basketball? Love it. The Celtics are his team. He can name every player on the roster and their stats for the season. Can you still swim? Alexander's face goes complicated at this one, shadows crossing his features. Not anymore, he admits. The wheelchair makes it difficult. But I used to swim competitively in college. Maybe we can figure something out together. Why can't you walk? Elijah asks with the blunt curiosity of a 7-year-old who hasn't learned yet that some questions make adults uncomfortable. Alexander appreciates the directness. He explains about the accident, about spinal injuries, about how sometimes the body breaks in ways that don't heal. He doesn't sugarcoat it, doesn't talk down to his son. Elijah listens with the same intense focus he applies to everything, nodding slowly, processing. Will you teach me about business? This question makes Alexander laugh, really laugh, for the first time since the accident. You're 7, he says. Plenty of time for business later. But yeah, buddy. I'll teach you everything I know. Simone watches these exchanges from the kitchen, from the hallway, from the doorway of Elijah's room. She watches the man she once loved connect with her son, watches Elijah's face light up in ways she's never seen before, watches 8 years of absence trying to compress itself into 3 days of intensive bonding. And she feels her carefully constructed walls begin to crack. Those walls took years to build. Brick by brick, she laid them after Alexander's mother showed up with that check. Brick by brick, She reinforced them every time Elijah asked about his father, and she had to lie, had to say she didn't know where he was, had to pretend her heart wasn't breaking. Brick by brick, she made herself strong enough to be both mother and father, to be everything Elijah needed, to survive alone. But watching Alexander teach Elijah how to play chess, explaining strategy with the same patience he probably used with junior executives, those bricks start to crumble. Watching him read bedtime stories in a voice that's rusty from disuse but warm with love, she feels the mortar weaken. Watching him just be present, be there, be the father Elijah has always deserved, the walls crack wide open. She's not ready to forgive him. Not completely. 8 years doesn't disappear in 3 days, no matter how many chess games get played or bedtime stories get read. But she's beginning to understand that maybe, just maybe, they were both victims of the same crime. That Victoria Sterling didn't just steal Alexander's company and try to take his life. She stole their family. She stole Elijah's childhood with his father. She stole 8 years that none of them can ever get back. And that realization makes Simone angrier than anything else Victoria has done. When the DNA results arrive on day 3, delivered by courier to Alexander's penthouse in a sealed envelope marked confidential, Alexander calls Simone immediately. His voice shakes when she answers. The results are here. And I haven't opened them yet. I wanted us to see them together. Simone takes Elijah to Alexander's penthouse that evening. It's the first time she's been there since she was 24 and in love and stupid enough to believe that love conquered all. The building hasn't changed. Still the most expensive address in Boston, still dripping with old money and new power. The doorman recognizes her, his eyes widening slightly before his professional mask slides back into place. She wonders what he remembers, what gossip circulated among the staff 8 years ago when the boss's assistant suddenly disappeared. Alexander's penthouse is exactly how she remembers, and completely different all at once. The same floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston Harbor, the same exposed brick and modern furniture, the same art that probably costs more than she makes in 5 years. But there are modifications now. Ramps where there used to be steps. Lower countertops in the kitchen. Everything adjusted for a life lived from a wheelchair. Elijah runs to the windows immediately, pressing his face against the glass, staring down at the city lights reflecting off the dark water. Mom, you can see everything from up here. I know, baby. Alexander wheels closer, the envelope in his lap. His hands are shaking slightly, and Simone realizes this man who commands boardrooms and closes billion-dollar deals is terrified. Terrified that somehow, despite everything, despite the eyes and the chin and the cowlick, the test will say Elijah isn't his. Terrified that this hope, this fragile new connection with his son, will be ripped away. Do you want me to open it? Simone asks gently. Alexander nods, not trusting his voice. She takes the envelope with steady hands and breaks the seal. Inside is a single page, dense with medical terminology and genetic markers and probability statistics. Her eyes scan down to the conclusion, and her breath catches. 99.9% probability of paternity, she reads aloud. The silence that follows is profound. Alexander just stares at the paper in her hands, his face cycling through emotions too complex to name. Then he takes the paper, holds it like it's the most precious thing he's ever touched, and breaks down completely. I have a son, he whispers, tears streaming down his face. I have a son. Elijah, sensing something important is happening, comes over from the windows. Dad? Are you okay? Dad. The word hits Alexander like a physical blow. His son is calling him Dad, and he has legal proof now, scientific proof, irrefutable evidence that this brilliant, curious, brave little boy is his. I'm okay, Alexander manages, pulling Elijah into a fierce hug. I'm better than okay. You're mine. You're really mine. I know, Elijah says with the simple confidence of a child who never doubted. I always knew. That night, after Simone takes Elijah home to bed, after the bodyguards do their perimeter checks and settle in for their shifts, Alexander makes a critical mistake. He calls his mother. Catherine Whitmore answers on the second ring, her voice cool and controlled as always. Alexander. It's late. I have a son, Mother. Silence on the other end. Then carefully, what are you talking about? Simone's child. Elijah. The DNA test came back today. He's mine. You have a grandson. Alexander's voice is hard, cold in a way Catherine hasn't heard since he was a teenager pushing back against family expectations. A grandson you tried to pay away 8 years ago. Alexander, I was protecting you. You were protecting your reputation. Your precious Whitmore name. You didn't care what it cost me or Simone or the child I never knew existed. He takes a breath, trying to control the anger that's been building for 3 days. But that's done now. I'm going to be part of Elijah's life. I'm going to be his father. And you're going to have to decide whether you want to be his grandmother or just another person who failed him. Catherine is quiet for a long moment. When she speaks, her voice is softened slightly, some of the aristocratic ice melting. What's he like? He's brilliant. Stubborn. Curious about everything. He plays chess and loves basketball and asks more questions than any human being I've ever met. Alexander's voice cracks. He's perfect, Mom. And I missed 7 years of his life because someone lied to both of us. What do you mean, someone lied? Simone never cashed that check. Someone forged her signature and deposited it to make me think she'd taken the money. Simone says she left me a voicemail about the pregnancy, but I never got it. Someone deleted it before I could hear it. Alexander pauses, letting that sink in. Someone manipulated both of us. Someone who had access to my phone and knew about your check. Someone who had everything to gain from keeping us apart. He doesn't say Victoria's name. He doesn't need to. Catherine is many things, but she's not stupid. She can connect the dots as well as anyone. Alexander, Catherine says slowly. What are you going to do? I'm going to get my company back. I'm going to expose Victoria for what she is. And I'm going to protect my son from anyone who tries to threaten him. His voice goes cold. Even if that means cutting out everyone who stood in my way 8 years ago. After he hangs up, Catherine Whitmore sits in her Beacon Hill mansion, staring at her phone, processing what her son just told her. She thinks about Victoria Sterling, the woman she supported for 8 years, the woman she championed as the perfect match for Alexander. She thinks about that check, about how quickly Victoria offered to help handle the Simone situation, about all the little moments that didn't quite add up. And then Catherine picks up her phone and makes a call. Victoria, darling, we need to talk. They meet at Victoria's office at Whitmore Industries the next morning. Catherine arrives in pearls and a Chanel suit, every inch the Boston Brahmin matriarch. Victoria greets her with air kisses and expensive coffee, all warmth and welcome. They settle in the CEO's office, the one that used to be Alexander's, and Victoria's smile is confident. What did you want to discuss, Catherine? There's a child, Catherine says without preamble. Alexander's illegitimate son with that woman from 8 years ago. She's back. Victoria's perfectly manicured hand tightens around her coffee cup. The only sign of tension, the only crack in her polished facade. How old? 7. Victoria does the math instantly. Her mind is already racing through implications, through timelines, through everything this means. 7 years old. Born right when she was consolidating her position with Alexander, right when she was orchestrating Simone's disappearance, right when she was positioning herself as the perfect future Mrs. Whitmore. This changes things, Victoria says, her voice cool and controlled. How do you mean? Victoria sets down her coffee cup and walks to the window, staring out at the Boston skyline that now belongs to her. An air strengthens Alexander's position with the board. Right now, he's alone, vulnerable, a man in a wheelchair with no future. But a son? That's legacy. That's succession planning. That's proof he has something to fight for beyond his own pride. She turns back to Catherine, her expression calculating. It undermines everything we've built over the past 6 months. Catherine watches her carefully. We. You and I, of course. Victoria's smile is smooth. We've been protecting Alexander from himself, haven't we? Making the hard decisions he can't make in his current state. Where is this child now? Catherine asks, testing. That's what I need to know. Victoria moves closer, her voice dropping to something more urgent. Alexander has been visiting them, I assume? The woman, Simone, where does she live? Catherine hesitates. Something in Victoria's intensity is setting off alarm bells, something in the way she's talking about this child like he's a problem to be solved rather than a person. She thinks about Alexander's words last night. Someone lied to both of us. Someone who had access to my phone and knew about your check. Alexander has been spending time with them, Catherine says carefully, not answering the location question. He seems quite taken with the boy. Of course he is. Victoria's voice has an edge now. He's always been sentimental. It's why he needed someone like me to make the practical decisions. She pauses. Catherine, I need to know where they are. For security purposes. If Alexander's enemies discover he has a child, an heir they can use as leverage. And there it is. The threat wrapped in concern. The same technique Victoria used 8 years ago when she convinced Catherine that Simone was dangerous. Catherine Whitmore has made many mistakes in her life. She's put family reputation above her son's happiness. She's trusted the wrong people. She's let her fear of scandal override her better judgment. But she's not a monster. And she's certainly not stupid. I'll let Alexander handle security for his son, Catherine says, standing. Thank you for the coffee, Victoria. She leaves before Victoria can argue, before she can deploy more manipulation. And as she walks out of Whitmore Industries, Catherine pulls out her phone and calls her son. Alexander, it's your mother. I think I made a terrible mistake 8 years ago. And I think Victoria is more dangerous than either of us realized. We need to talk. But it's too late. Victoria already has everything she needs. Catherine's visit confirmed the child exists, confirmed Alexander is involved with them, confirmed this is a real threat to her position. And Victoria Sterling didn't build her empire by waiting for problems to solve themselves. 2 days after the paternity results arrive, Simone is at her office coordinating vendor contracts for an upcoming corporate event when the mail arrives. Mixed in with the usual invoices and marketing materials is a manila envelope with no return address. Something about it makes her skin prickle with unease. She opens it carefully, and photographs spill across her desk. Elijah walking to school, his backpack almost too big for his small frame. The security guard Rodriguez is visible in the background, but there are other shots, taken from different angles, showing moments when Rodriguez was out of frame. When Elijah was alone. Elijah at the playground near their apartment, hanging upside down from the monkey bars, laughing. Simone wasn't with him in these shots. He'd gone with his friend Marcus and Marcus's father. But someone had been there. Someone had been watching. Elijah with Alexander at a private restaurant in the Back Bay, their heads bent together over a chessboard. This was from 3 days ago, a dinner Simone hadn't attended because she needed space to process everything. Someone had photographed them through the window. And tucked beneath all the photos is a note, typed on expensive cardstock, the kind that probably costs $20 a sheet. Children can be so vulnerable. It would be a shame if Alexander's enemies discovered his greatest weakness. Disappear again. This time, take the boy somewhere Alexander will never find you. $500,000 will be transferred to an account of your choosing. Or don't. And discover what happens to people who threaten Victoria Sterling's future. Simone's hands shake so badly she drops the photos. They scatter across her desk like accusations, each one proof that someone has been tracking her son, watching him, documenting his movements. Someone who got close enough to capture the gap in his front teeth when he smiles, the way his nose wrinkles when he concentrates on his chess moves, the exact shade of his brown eyes. She calls Alexander with trembling fingers, not even caring that she's probably interrupting something important, not caring about anything except the threat hanging over their son. She knows, Simone gasps when he answers. Victoria knows about Elijah, and she's threatening him. There's a long silence on the other end. She can hear Alexander breathing, can hear something in the background that might be wheels on hardwood floor, can imagine him sitting in his wheelchair trying to process what she just said. When he speaks, his voice is steel. Pack a bag. You and Elijah are moving into my penthouse tonight. My security team will escort you. Alexander, I can't just. She threatened my son. The words come out clipped, final, leaving no room for argument. Pack a bag. I'm sending Rodriguez and 2 others to your apartment right now. Don't open the door for anyone else. Don't go anywhere. Don't let Elijah out of your sight. I'm handling this. How? How are you going to handle someone who's willing to threaten a child? By making sure she never gets close enough to touch him. Alexander's voice drops lower. I've lost 8 years with Elijah. I've lost my ability to walk. I've lost my company. I'm not losing anything else, Simone. Not him. Not you. Victoria just made the biggest mistake of her life by threatening what's mine. The security team arrives at Simone's apartment within 20 minutes. They do a sweep of her building, checking for surveillance equipment, for anything suspicious, for signs that Victoria has already escalated beyond photographs and threats. They find a camera disguised as a smoke detector in the hallway outside her apartment door. Another in the stairwell. Professional-grade equipment, the kind that costs thousands of dollars and requires expertise to install. Rodriguez destroys both cameras with a calm efficiency that suggests he's done this before. Then he helps Simone pack bags for her and Elijah while 2 other guards establish a perimeter. Elijah is confused by the sudden move, excited by the adventure but sensing the fear underneath his mother's forced cheerfulness. Are we going to live with Dad? For a little while, baby. Until things settle down. What things? How do you explain to a 7-year-old that a woman he's never met wants to hurt him because his existence threatens her billion-dollar empire? How do you maintain his innocence while keeping him safe? Adult things, Simone says, which is a non-answer that Elijah accepts with the resilience of a child who's learned not to push too hard when his mother gets that particular expression. Moving into Alexander's penthouse is like entering another universe, like stepping through a portal into a world Simone thought she'd left behind 8 years ago. The building security is immediately tripled. Alexander has guards stationed at every entrance, cameras monitoring every hallway, protocols in place for anyone who wants to visit. The penthouse itself becomes a fortress of glass and steel, beautiful but impenetrable. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook Boston Harbor, offering views that probably cost more per month than Simone used to make in a year. The apartment has more square footage than most houses in her neighborhood, all of it decorated with the kind of understated elegance that only significant wealth can buy. There's a chef who prepares meals Simone can't pronounce. A housekeeper who moves through the space like a ghost. A physical therapist who comes daily to work with Alexander, helping him maintain muscle tone and range of motion, always searching for that slight improvement that might someday translate to more mobility. Elijah thinks it's the best adventure ever. He runs from room to room, discovering the home theater system, the game room with a pool table and vintage arcade machines, the library with floor-to-ceiling shelves and a rolling ladder. He finds his father's old chess set, carved from ivory and ebony, probably worth more than Simone's car. Alexander lets him play with it anyway, teaching him openings and strategies, explaining the game like it's the most important thing in the world. Simone feels like she's drowning. Drowning in opulence and old memories, in the life she almost had, in the world she walked away from because she thought it had rejected her. She moves through Alexander's space like a ghost herself, touching things that feel both familiar and foreign. The kitchen where she used to make him coffee during late-night work sessions. The living room where they used to argue about mergers and acquisitions while he paced and she took notes. The bedroom door she doesn't let herself look at too closely because some memories are too dangerous to revisit. One night after Elijah is asleep in the guest room that's been converted into a child's paradise, complete with space-themed bedding and every toy a 7-year-old could want, Simone finds herself standing in Alexander's living room, staring at a leather couch that looks different from the one she remembers but occupies the same space. "This is the couch where we first kissed," she says without turning around, knowing Alexander is behind her without having to look. She hears the quiet whir of his wheelchair approaching. "I had it reupholstered 3 times trying to forget." Did it work? No. They stand in silence, the weight of 8 years pressing down between them. Simone turns to face him, and he looks smaller somehow in his wheelchair, more vulnerable than the man who used to tower over her in boardrooms. But his eyes are the same. Piercing blue, intelligent, seeing through her in ways that used to terrify and thrill her. "Why did you believe I took the money?" The question comes out quiet, not accusing, just genuinely curious. Alexander's jaw tightens. "Because my mother showed me proof. A signed receipt from the estate's accounting office, showing that you'd come to collect a check for $50,000. She said you'd walked into her office, taken the money, and told her you were glad to be rid of me. That I'd been a fun distraction, but you had bigger plans." Simone flinches. "I never said that." "I know that now. But then." Alexander runs a hand through his hair, a gesture she remembers from 1,000 late nights at the office. "I was heartbroken. I'd been falling in love with you for months, wondering if you felt the same, trying to figure out how to navigate the power dynamics and the family expectations and everything that made us impossible. And then you just disappeared. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. When my mother showed me that receipt, when she told me what you supposedly said, it confirmed every insecurity I had. That you were using me. That I was just a payday. The receipt was fabricated. Yes. Alexander's voice cracks. And I was stupid enough to believe it. Stupid enough to believe her instead of trusting you. Stupid enough to not even try to find you and hear your side of the story. I just accepted her version and tried to move on. We were both stupid, Simone says softly, moving closer. I believed you'd sent your mother to pay me off. I believed you'd chosen your family over us. I believed you didn't want our baby. I spent 8 years thinking you were a coward and a liar, when really we were both just victims of someone else's manipulation. Victoria. Victoria, Simone confirms. They look at each other, really look at each other for the first time since she walked back into his life, and something shifts. The anger that's been sustaining them both, the hurt that's been keeping them at a distance, it doesn't disappear. But it transforms into something else. Shared grief. Shared rage at what was stolen from them. Shared determination to make sure Victoria Sterling never takes anything from them again. Over the next 2 weeks, something beautiful and heartbreaking happens in that penthouse fortress. Elijah and Alexander become inseparable in a way that makes Simone's heart ache with joy and loss simultaneously. Alexander teaches Elijah about business through board games. They play Monopoly like it's a graduate-level course in real estate investment, Alexander explaining market dynamics and property values and the importance of diversification. They play Risk like it's a seminar in strategic planning, discussing resource allocation and calculated risks, and when to be aggressive versus when to hold back. Elijah absorbs it all with the focused intensity he brings to everything, asking questions that make Alexander laugh and think, and sometimes pause to reconsider his own assumptions. Elijah asks about the wheelchair with a 7-year-old's blunt curiosity, no tiptoeing around the subject, no awkward euphemisms. Does it hurt? Sometimes, Alexander admits. Mostly at night when I've been sitting too long. Mostly when I think about all the things I used to be able to do. Will you ever walk again? Maybe, Alexander says honestly. Maybe not. The doctors aren't sure. The spinal cord injury was severe but not complete. There's still some sensation, some potential for improvement. But I might spend the rest of my life in this chair. Are you sad? Elijah asks, and it's such a simple question with such a complicated answer. Yes, Alexander says. But less so now. Less so since I met you. They watch basketball together, Celtics games on the massive television in the living room, Elijah explaining the players and their stats with the expertise of a dedicated fan. Alexander tells him about playing basketball in college, before business school consumed his life, about the joy of movement and competition and pushing his body to its limits. He doesn't say that he misses it, but Elijah understands anyway. Kids always understand more than adults give them credit for. Alexander tells stories about building Whitmore Industries from his father's small tech company into a billion-dollar empire. He talks about the risks he took, the innovations he championed, the people he hired and fired and mentored. He talks about business like it's a living thing, something that requires care and feeding and constant attention. Elijah listens like it's the most fascinating thing he's ever heard, and maybe for a 7-year-old who wants to understand where he comes from, it is. Elijah tells his father about being the only kid in his class without a dad. About Father's Day at school when everyone else made cards and he sat alone at a table pretending he didn't care. About the lies he told other kids, creative stories to explain his father's absence because the truth, I don't know where he is, felt too shameful to speak out loud. I used to tell kids you were a secret agent, Elijah confesses one night while they're playing chess. Because it sounded better than I don't know where he is. I said you were on classified missions and couldn't contact us for security reasons. Some kids believed me. Most didn't. Alexander's hand freezes over his knight. His eyes go bright with unshed tears. He reaches across the board and pulls his son into a hug that's awkward from the wheelchair, but fierce and full of a love so overwhelming it physically hurts. I'm so sorry I wasn't there, Alexander says, his voice breaking. I would have been if I'd known. I would have been at every Father's Day, every birthday, every school event. I would have coached your basketball team and helped with your homework and tucked you in every single night. I didn't know, Elijah. I swear to God I didn't know you existed, or nothing in this world would have kept me away. I know, Dad. Dad. The word breaks Alexander's heart and puts it back together simultaneously. His son is calling him Dad like it's the most natural thing in the world, like they haven't missed 7 years of each other's lives, like Victoria's lies never happened. Simone watches them from doorways and hallways, bearing witness to a relationship being built in double time, compressed and intensified by years of absence. She watches Elijah's face light up when Alexander explains something new, watches Alexander's eyes soften when Elijah climbs into his lap for a hug, watches them build the father-son bond that should have started 7 years ago. And tears stream down her face because this is what she dreamed of 8 years ago when she first found out she was pregnant. This connection, this love, this family, this is what Victoria stole from all of them. But while they're building their family, Victoria is building her case. At Whitmore Industries headquarters, she calls an emergency board meeting, her expression grave, her evidence carefully prepared. "Gentlemen, ladies," she begins, standing at the head of the conference table where Alexander used to sit. "Thank you for making time on such short notice. What I need to discuss with you today concerns Alexander's fitness to lead this company, and I'm afraid the news isn't good." She clicks a remote, and a presentation appears on the screen behind her. Medical reports, or documents that look like medical reports to board members who aren't doctors. They're forged, of course, manipulated to show what Victoria needs them to show. Prescriptions for antidepressants. Notes about suicidal ideation. Recommendations for psychological evaluation. Alexander's personal situation has become untenable, Victoria continues, her voice dripping with false concern that sounds genuine if you don't know her well enough to hear the calculation underneath. His judgment is impaired by both his physical condition and the medications he requires for pain management. More concerning, he's become obsessed with a woman who recently re-entered his life. She clicks again. Photos appear on the screen. Simone entering Alexander's building. Elijah playing in the penthouse's living room. Alexander and Simone on his balcony, clearly in an intimate conversation. He's moved strangers into his home, Victoria says, letting disapproval color her tone. A woman he hasn't seen in 8 years and a child whose paternity has yet to be publicly verified. His behavior is erratic at best, delusional at worst. He's claiming this child is his son based on a relationship that ended nearly a decade ago. He's talking about lost time and stolen years and conspiracies against him. His paranoia has escalated to the point where he's hired armed security to patrol his building. Marcus Chen interrupts, his voice sharp. "Victoria, those armed security guards are there because someone has been photographing the child and sending threatening letters to his mother. Alexander is protecting his family, not exhibiting paranoia." "His alleged family," Victoria corrects smoothly. "Marcus, I understand your loyalty to Alexander. We all admire what he built here. But we have to face facts. Alexander founded this company and built it from $50 million to $3 billion in 10 years. That's extraordinary. That's the work of a visionary. But one accident doesn't erase the question of whether he can continue to lead. One accident that nearly killed him," Marcus shoots back. "One accident that you're now using as justification to steal his company." Victoria's smile doesn't waver. "I'm not stealing anything. I'm protecting what Alexander built. For his own sake as much as ours." She pauses, letting the moment breathe. The police report cited brake failure as the cause of Alexander's accident. His enemies are numerous, as we all know. What if this wasn't an accident? What if he's still in danger? Can we, in good conscience, allow him to remain CEO when his life, and by extension the company's stability, might be at risk? It's masterful. She's positioning herself as concerned, protective, reluctant to take power. She's making it seem like removing Alexander is the compassionate choice, the responsible choice, the only choice that makes sense. The board members shift uncomfortably. Some look convinced. Others look troubled but uncertain. Victoria has been working on them for months, planting seeds of doubt, sharing carefully edited information, positioning herself as the stable alternative to Alexander's chaos. "I move we vote," one of the board members says, a venture capitalist who's been on Victoria's side since the beginning. "I'd like to table this discussion," Marcus argues. "Give Alexander a chance to respond to these allegations. He deserves that much." But Victoria has the votes and she knows it. She's counted them twice, confirmed them 3 times, left nothing to chance. The vote, when it comes, is 7-4 in favor of removing Alexander as CEO and installing Victoria Sterling permanently. Marcus votes against it, along with 3 other board members who remember the man Alexander was, who believe in giving him a chance to defend himself. But it's not enough. Victoria remains composed during the vote, her expression appropriately solemn, like this decision pains her even as it's exactly what she's been working toward for 8 years. She thanks the board for their difficult decision. She promises to honor Alexander's legacy while steering the company into the future. She plays her role perfectly. Marcus Chun leaves the meeting and calls Alexander immediately. "They voted you out," he says without preamble. "I'm sorry, Alex. Victoria's been working on this for months. She had the votes locked before we even walked into that room." Alexander sits in his wheelchair, Elijah asleep on the couch behind him after their evening chess game, Simone in the kitchen making tea. He stares out at the Boston skyline, at the city he helped build, at the Whitmore Industries building visible in the distance with lights still burning in the executive offices where Victoria is probably celebrating her victory. "Then we move to Plan B," Alexander says calmly. "What's Plan B?" Alexander's voice goes cold, calculated, dangerous in a way Marcus hasn't heard since the early days when Alexander was fighting hostile takeovers and corporate raiders. "We remind everyone who built Whitmore Industries. We expose exactly what Victoria's been hiding. And we take back what's mine." Plan B requires resources. Money, which Alexander still has plenty of despite Victoria's attempts to freeze his assets. Expertise, which money can buy. And time, which is the one thing they're running out of. Alexander hires private investigators within 24 hours. Not just any investigators, but the best in Boston, the ones who specialize in corporate espionage and white-collar crime, the ones who know how to find evidence that people thought they'd buried. Their mission is simple: trace every lie Victoria Sterling has told over the past 8 years. Find the proof. Build the case. Leave no stone unturned. Within a week, they start delivering results. Victoria accessed Alexander's phone the day Simone called about the pregnancy. The investigators pull call records from 8 years ago, find the deletion timestamp, trace it to Victoria's login credentials on Alexander's personal device management system. She'd claimed she needed access to sync his calendar with hers when she returned from London. He trusted her, given her the codes, never imagined she'd use them to destroy his life. The $50,000 check to Simone was real, issued by Catherine Whitmore's office exactly as Simone described. But Simone never cashed it. The investigators tracked down the bank records, the deposit slip, the signature that supposedly proved Simone took the money. Forensic document analysis reveals it's a forgery, a skilled one but still identifiable under proper examination. The account where the money was deposited? Registered to a shell company with Victoria's fingerprints all over the paperwork. She'd set up the account months before Simone got pregnant, preparing contingencies, always planning 3 steps ahead. Victoria has been systematically embezzling from Whitmore Industries for 3 years. The investigators find offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, in Switzerland, in Luxembourg. Millions of dollars siphoned away through fake vendor contracts, inflated consulting fees, ghost employees on the payroll. She's been building her own empire on the back of Alexander's company, preparing for the day she'd take full control. The amounts are staggering. $47 million over 3 years, hidden so carefully that even Marcus Chen's audits didn't catch it. But the investigators find something else. Something darker that makes Alexander's blood run cold when they deliver the news. The lead investigator is a former FBI agent named Sarah Brennan, 50 years old with gray-streaked hair and eyes that have seen too much. She comes to Alexander's penthouse on a rainy Tuesday evening, her expression grim, carrying a file folder that seems to weigh more than it should. "Mr. Whitmore," she says, settling into the chair across from his wheelchair while Simone hovers nearby. Elijah is asleep, thank God, because what Sarah is about to say isn't for a child's ears. "The car accident that put you in that wheelchair? It wasn't an accident." Alexander's hands tighten on his armrests. "I suspected as much. Can you prove it?" "We found the mechanic who tampered with your brake lines." Sarah pulls out photographs, spreads them on the coffee table. A man in his 40s, working class, the kind of person who wouldn't normally cross paths with Boston's elite. His name is Tommy Ricci. He has a gambling problem, owes money to some very unpleasant people. Someone paid off his debts 6 months ago, right before your accident. All he had to do was access your private garage and cut your brake lines in a way that would fail catastrophically at high speed. Simone's hand flies to her mouth. Oh my God. Tommy's been carrying the guilt ever since, Sarah continues. He didn't know you'd survive. He didn't know you'd end up in a wheelchair instead of dead. When our investigators approached him, offered him immunity in exchange for testimony, he broke down. Gave us everything. Bank records showing the payment. Text messages with his contact. Security footage we pulled from your building showing him entering your garage. Who paid him? Alexander asks, though he already knows the answer. Victoria Sterling. Sarah pulls out more documents, bank transfers, shell company paperwork. She used the same account structure she's been using for the embezzlement. Thought she was being careful, but she got sloppy. Or maybe arrogant. Tommy's payoff came from the same Luxembourg account where she's been hiding millions. The silence that follows is profound. Alexander stares at the photographs, at the proof that Victoria tried to murder him, that she cut his brake lines and sent him driving to the Whitmore Industries anniversary gala, knowing the brakes would fail, knowing he'd crash, knowing he'd die. That she's capable not just of manipulation and theft, but actual murder. She wanted me dead, Alexander says quietly. She wanted you out of the way permanently, Sarah confirms. The wheelchair was an accident, an unintended consequence. If she'd succeeded, you'd be buried and she'd have full control of Whitmore Industries with no legal complications. Instead, you survived, and she had to adapt her strategy. Simone sinks onto the couch, her face pale. And now she knows about Elijah. Now she's threatening a child. Which is why we need to move fast, Sarah says. We have enough evidence to put Victoria away for attempted murder, for embezzlement, for fraud. But we need to coordinate with law enforcement, build an airtight case, make sure she doesn't have time to destroy evidence or run. Alexander looks at the investigator, then at Simone, then out at the Boston skyline where Victoria is probably sitting in his office, celebrating her victory, planning her next move. He thinks about his son sleeping in the next room, about the 7 years he missed, about the family that was stolen from him by this woman's ambition and cruelty. How long do we have, he asks. Days, Sarah says. Maybe a week. Once Victoria realizes we're investigating, she'll start covering her tracks. We need to strike while she still thinks she's won. That night, after Sarah leaves, after the evidence is locked away and plans are being made, Simone finds Alexander on his penthouse balcony. He's staring out at the city lights reflecting off the harbor, his wheelchair positioned at the railing, his shoulders tense with everything he's carrying. Can't sleep, she asks, stepping out into the cool October air. Someone tried to kill me, Simone. His voice is flat, emotionless, like he's still processing what he learned. Someone I've known since childhood, someone my family trusted, someone I was engaged to marry. She cut my brake lines and sent me to die. But you didn't die. No. I survived. Alexander's laugh is bitter. I survived, and now I'm wondering if Victoria was actually willing to go that far. If she's capable of murder, then what else is she capable of? If she discovers we're investigating her, if she feels cornered. Then she's capable of hurting Elijah, Simone finishes, the fear she's been suppressing for 2 weeks finally breaking through. They stand in silence, the weight of that truth settling between them like a physical presence. The city spreads out below, millions of lights representing millions of lives, all of them continuing on while Alexander and Simone try to figure out how to protect their son from a woman who's already committed attempted murder. I won't let her touch him, Alexander says finally. I'll give up the company, the money, everything. I'll disappear with you both if that's what it takes. But I won't let Victoria hurt my son. Simone moves closer, drawn by something she can't quite name. Shared danger. Shared purpose. Or maybe just the memory of who they used to be before Victoria Sterling destroyed them. You don't have to choose. We fight her. Together. We expose what she's done and we make sure she never threatens anyone again. Why would you help me? Alexander turns to face her, and in the dim light from the penthouse, his blue eyes are darker, more vulnerable than she's ever seen them. I believed lies about you. I let you walk away pregnant and alone. I let you raise Elijah by yourself for 7 years while I moved on with my life. Why would you trust me now? Why would you fight beside me? Because you're Elijah's father. Simone's voice is steady, sure. Because Victoria destroyed us once, and I won't let her do it again. Because that little boy in there deserves to have both his parents, and I'm done letting other people's lies keep us apart. She pauses, takes a breath, says the thing she's been avoiding for 2 weeks because saying it makes her vulnerable in ways she's not sure she's ready for. And because I never stopped loving you, Alexander. Even when I hated you, even when I thought you'd abandoned us, even when I spent 8 years building walls to keep you out of my heart, I never stopped loving you. Alexander's breath catches. Simone. I've been in love with you for 8 years, she continues, the words pouring out now that she started. Even when I tried to move on, even when I dated other men and pretended I was over you, even when I told myself you were just a mistake I'd left behind, I was in love with you. I never stopped. I don't know how to stop. Alexander reaches for her hand, pulls her closer, and for a moment they just stand there, breathing the same air, sharing the same space they used to occupy before lies and manipulation tore them apart. I was engaged to Victoria, Alexander says quietly. I let my family push me toward her. I tried to convince myself that she was what I needed, that stability and social approval mattered more than passion. But Simone, I was never in love with her. Not for a single day. Because I was still in love with you. Alexander. Every woman I dated, every relationship I tried to build, I was comparing them to you. To the way you made me laugh. To the way you challenged me. To the way you saw me as just Alexander, not as the Whitmore heir or the billionaire CEO, just as me. His voice cracks. I've been in love with you for 8 years. Even when I thought you'd betrayed me. Even when I tried to move on. You were always there, haunting me. They kiss then, tentative at first like they're testing whether this is real or just another dream that will dissolve in the morning light. Then desperate, 8 years of longing and pain and love that never died pouring into the connection between them. Alexander's hands frame her face like she's precious, like she's fragile, like she might disappear again if he doesn't hold on tight enough. Simone's fingers tangle in his hair, pulling him closer, trying to erase 8 years of distance with this one perfect moment. When they finally pull apart, both breathing hard, both trembling, Simone whispers against his lips, "We take her down. We get your company back. And we protect our son. Together. Together." Alexander kisses her again, softer this time, a promise instead of desperation. I love you. I should have said it 8 years ago. I should have fought for you then. But I'm saying it now. I love you, Simone Carter. I've always loved you. I love you too, Simone says, and feels something in her chest that's been frozen for 8 years finally start to thaw. We're going to make Victoria pay for what she did to us. We're going to take back everything she stole. But neither of them notices the figure in a car parked across the street, 3 stories down and half a block away. Neither of them sees the telephoto lens pointed at Alexander's balcony, capturing their embrace in high-definition clarity. Neither of them realizes that Victoria has been watching, that she has people stationed near Alexander's building 24 hours a day, that she's been documenting everything. Victoria Sterling sits in her Beacon Hill townhouse, scrolling through the photographs her surveillance team just sent over. Alexander and Simone on the balcony, kissing like teenagers, like people who are planning something. The body language is clear even from a distance. They're not just reuniting. They're strategizing. They're preparing for war. Victoria pours herself a glass of wine, studies the photographs with the analytical precision that made her a threat in the first place, and makes a decision. She spent 8 years building her position, carefully dismantling Alexander's support structure, positioning herself to inherit everything. She's not going to lose it all because of some illegitimate child and a woman who should have stayed disappeared. If Alexander and Simone want war, Victoria will give them war. And she always wins. She picks up her phone and makes a call to a number that isn't saved in her contacts, that exists only in her memory. The voice that answers is professional, emotionless, the voice of someone who gets paid to solve problems that legal channels can't touch. I have a job for you, Victoria says. There's a child. 7 years old. I need information on his routines, his school schedule, the security around him. I need to know his vulnerabilities. And what are we planning to do with this information? The voice asks. Victoria smiles, cold and calculating. Whatever is necessary to make him disappear. She hangs up and takes another sip of wine, staring out her window at the Boston night. Alexander thinks he's being clever, hiring investigators and building evidence. He thinks he's protecting his son with bodyguards and security protocols. He thinks he's won just because he's discovered the truth about the past 8 years. But Victoria has always been 3 steps ahead. And she's about to teach Alexander Whitmore what it really means to lose everything. If someone tried to kill the person you loved, what would you do? Type justice in the comments if you believe Victoria needs to pay for what she's done. And here's the real question. Do you think Simone and Alexander can trust each other again after 8 years of lies and pain? Can love survive that kind of betrayal? Or are they just setting themselves up for more heartbreak? Let me know what you think, because this war is about to explode in ways none of them are prepared for. Victoria Sterling isn't just a corporate villain. She's a woman who's already tried to commit murder once. And now she's setting her sights on a 7-year-old boy who just wanted to know his father. The question isn't whether she'll strike again. The question is whether Alexander and Simone will see it coming in time to stop her. The Boston Herald's morning edition hits the newsstands at 6 a.m., and by 6:30, Simone's phone is exploding with notifications she doesn't understand yet. She's in Alexander's kitchen making breakfast for Elijah, still getting used to the penthouse's professional-grade appliances and the way morning light floods through floor-to-ceiling windows. She's still getting used to living in this fortress of glass and steel, still adjusting to bodyguards outside the door and security cameras monitoring every entrance. Still learning how to breathe in a world where threats aren't abstract concepts, but real dangers that require armed protection. Her phone buzzes. Then buzzes again. Then starts ringing with calls from numbers she doesn't recognize. Something cold settles in her stomach. Mom. Elijah looks up from his cereal, sensing her tension the way children always do. What's wrong? Nothing, baby. Just work stuff. She silences her phone and focuses on pouring orange juice, on maintaining the illusion of normalcy, on protecting her son from whatever storm is building. But Alexander wheels into the kitchen with a newspaper in his lap, and the expression on his face tells her the storm has already arrived. Simone, he says quietly, we have a problem. The front page of the Boston Herald screams in 72-point font, Whitmore heirs secret love child, former assistant returns with illegitimate son, claims billions. The article below is a masterpiece of character assassination, clearly leaked by someone with intimate knowledge of their situation and zero concern about truth. It paints Simone as a gold digger who disappeared 8 years ago after taking a settlement, who's now returned to exploit Alexander's vulnerable state, who's using a child to manipulate a disabled billionaire into giving her access to his fortune. The photos accompanying the piece are from Victoria's surveillance. Simone and Alexander on his balcony, kissing like lovers reuniting after years apart. The caption suggests the embrace is calculated, strategic, a woman working her marks. Another photo shows Elijah in the penthouse, and the caption questions whether this child is even Alexander's or just a convenient prop in Simone's scheme. The article resurrects the old story about the $50,000 payout, suggesting Simone took the money 8 years ago and is back for more. It implies she coached Elijah to approach Alexander at the hospital, that the whole reunion was staged. It questions the legitimacy of the paternity test, hints at fraud, suggests Alexander is being taken advantage of by a woman who sees only dollar signs. Simone reads it twice, her hand shaking, her vision blurring. Every sentence is a knife designed to destroy her reputation, her credibility, her life. The article is careful, legally speaking. It uses words like allegedly and sources suggest, and questions remain. But the implication is clear, brutal, devastating. She's a predator. A liar. A woman who abandoned Alexander once for money and is back to finish the job now that he's weakened by injury. This is Victoria, Alexander says, his voice tight with controlled fury. This is her opening move. Within an hour, Simone's social media accounts are flooded with hateful messages. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, from strangers who've read one article and decided they know everything about her character. Gold digger. Whore. Scammer. Worse things she won't let herself fully read because seeing that much hatred directed at her makes it hard to breathe. Reporters start camping outside Alexander's building. The security team has to establish a perimeter, turn away journalists with cameras and microphones, people who want to ask Simone how it feels to trap a disabled man, whether she's proud of using her son as a pawn, if she's worried about criminal charges for fraud. Her boss at the event coordination firm calls at 9 a.m. His voice is apologetic but firm. "Simone, I think it would be best if you took a temporary leave of absence. Just until this media situation calms down. We can't have our clients associating us with this kind of controversy." "You're firing me." "I'm suggesting a leave. Paid, of course. Just until things settle." She hangs up without responding because what's there to say? That she's innocent? That the article is full of lies? Nobody cares about her truth when Victoria's lies are so much more entertaining. Elijah sees the newspaper at breakfast. He can't read all the words yet, his 7-year-old vocabulary not quite equipped for terms like illegitimate and exploitation, but he understands enough. He sees his mother's picture next to words that feel mean even if he can't define them. He sees the way adults are whispering, the way his mom's eyes are red from crying. "Do people think Mom is bad?" he asks Alexander, his voice small and confused in a way that breaks both adults' hearts. Alexander sets down his coffee cup carefully, wheels closer to his son. "Some people believe lies," he says, choosing his words with the precision of someone who understands that what he says next will shape how Elijah sees the world. "There's a woman who wants to hurt us. She's telling stories that aren't true because she thinks if people believe them, she'll get what she wants. But why would anyone believe her instead of Mom? Because lies are sometimes more interesting than truth. Because people like drama more than they like facts. Because the world isn't always fair, Elijah." The boy processes this with his characteristic seriousness. "The truth is that Mom loved you and you loved her, and I was born because of love, right?" "That's exactly right." "Then why is everyone being mean?" Alexander has no answer that will satisfy a 7-year-old's sense of justice. How do you explain to a child that sometimes people are cruel just because they can be? That reputation matters more than truth in certain circles? That his mother is being destroyed by a woman who sees them all as obstacles to be eliminated? "Because the world is complicated," Alexander finally says. "But we know the truth. And we're going to make sure everyone else knows it too." But Elijah's eyes are already filling with tears, already understanding in the way children do that his existence has somehow made his mother's life harder. That being born was the catalyst for all of this pain. Simone pulls him into a fierce hug, and Alexander joins them, the three of them holding each other in the kitchen of a penthouse fortress while outside, the world decides their guilt without trial. That afternoon, Catherine Whitmore arrives at the penthouse unannounced. For 8 years, she's been the villain in Simone's story. The woman who showed up with a check and lies, who offered money to make a problem disappear, who valued family reputation over human decency. Simone has spent 8 years hating this woman, blaming her for the loss of Alexander's presence in Elijah's life, for the lonely nights and the struggle and the fear. Now Catherine stands in Alexander's entryway looking older than her 60 years, her usual aristocratic composure cracked by something that might be guilt or fear or both. "I need to speak with both of you," Catherine says, her voice trembling in a way Simone has never heard before. Catherine Whitmore doesn't tremble. She commands. She dictates. She controls. They settle in Alexander's study, the three of them arranged like opposing armies negotiating terms. Alexander in his wheelchair, positioned between the two women like a buffer. Simone rigid with distrust on the leather couch, her arms crossed, her expression carefully neutral. Catherine in the wingback chair across from them, her hands twisted in her lap, her Chanel suit perfect but her face showing every one of her years. "I lied," Catherine begins without preamble. 8 years ago, Victoria came to me. She told me you were pregnant, Simone. She said you were planning to trap Alexander, to force him into marriage by using a baby. She showed me messages that suggested you were after his money. Messages that were fabricated, Simone says coldly. "I know that now. Then." Catherine's voice cracks. "I believed her. Victoria came from our world. She understood how these things worked. And you were a threat to everything I'd planned for Alexander's future. So you offered me $50,000 to disappear. I thought I was protecting my son." Catherine meets Simone's eyes, and there's genuine anguish there, decades of regret compressed into this single moment. "I thought you were using him. Victoria showed me bank statements that suggested you had debts, that you needed money. She painted a picture of a woman who saw Alexander as a meal ticket, and I believed it because it was easier than accepting that my son had fallen in love with someone I hadn't chosen for him. Why? Alexander asks, his voice harder than Simone has ever heard it. Why would you believe Victoria over the woman I loved? Catherine takes a breath that sounds like it costs her something. Because Victoria was safe. Victoria came from our world. She wouldn't disrupt the family business or reputation. She understood the expectations, the obligations, the way things are supposed to work in families like ours. And I was a coward who valued control over my son's happiness. The silence that follows is heavy with 8 years of consequences. 8 years of Simone raising Elijah alone. 8 years of Alexander believing he'd been betrayed. 8 years of a little boy growing up without his father. Victoria forged your signature on the check receipt, Catherine continues. She deposited the money in an account she controlled, making it look like you'd taken it and cashed it. And I told Alexander you'd come to the estate, taken the money, and said you were glad to be rid of him. That you'd called him a convenient distraction, but you had bigger plans. Simone flinches like she's been struck. I never said any of that. I know. But I believed Victoria when she told me you did. And I convinced Alexander to believe it too. Catherine pulls out her phone with shaking hands and slides it across the desk toward them. I've been recording my conversations with Victoria for the past month. I started to suspect she was lying about other things. Financial reports. Board votes. Your condition, Alexander. This recording is from 3 days ago. Alexander picks up the phone and presses play. Victoria's voice fills the study, clear and damning and absolutely incriminating. Catherine, we're so close. Alexander is nearly defeated. Once I have full control of the company, we'll be untouchable. The illegitimate child complicates things, but children are fragile. Accidents happen. Catherine's voice on the recording, uncertain and troubled. Victoria, what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that people who threaten me tend to disappear. His car accident wasn't chance, Catherine. And I'm prepared to ensure the boy doesn't become a problem either. The recording ends. The silence that follows is absolute. Simone's face has gone white, her hands clenched so tightly her nails are cutting into her palms. She's threatening Elijah. She's threatening my son. She admitted to trying to kill me, Alexander says quietly, his voice empty of emotion because emotion would be too overwhelming right now. Catherine nods, tears streaming down her carefully made-up face, mascara creating dark tracks on her cheeks. I came here to give you this recording. To tell you I'm prepared to testify against her. To beg for your forgiveness even though I know I don't deserve it. Simone looks at the woman who destroyed her life 8 years ago, who's now trying to save her grandson. Part of her wants to rage, to scream about the years that were stolen, about the nights she spent alone and terrified wondering how she'd provide for her baby. Part of her wants to throw Catherine out and never see her again. But another part, the part that's a mother herself, sees a woman who made terrible choices out of fear and is now trying to make amends before it's too late. Why now? Simone asks. Why are you helping us now? Catherine's composure finally breaks completely. Her voice shatters into pieces. Because I met Elijah last week. Alexander brought him to visit me. And that little boy, my grandson, asked me why I never wanted to meet him before. He asked if I didn't like him because his parents weren't married. He asked if there was something wrong with him that made his grandmother not love him. She's sobbing now, all aristocratic reserve gone, just a woman confronting the consequences of her choices. I've been a coward and a fool, Catherine continues. I robbed you of 8 years together. I robbed myself of knowing my grandson. I let Victoria manipulate me because it was easier than admitting I was wrong. And I almost let her destroy all of you because I was too proud to see what she really was. Alexander wheels closer to his mother. Mom, we're going to take Victoria down. We're going to expose everything she's done and make sure she never hurts anyone again. Are you with us? Catherine straightens her shoulders, wipes her tears, and some of that old Whitmore steel returns to her spine. I'm with you. Whatever it takes. I'll testify. I'll face the media. I'll admit publicly what I did 8 years ago. Whatever you need to destroy Victoria Sterling, I'll do it. Simone and Alexander exchange a look across the study. They're not ready to forgive Catherine, not completely. 8 years doesn't disappear because of one recording and one tearful apology. But they're willing to accept her help, willing to let her try to earn back what she destroyed. Because the enemy of my enemy is my ally. And right now, they need every ally they can get. With Catherine's recording as ammunition, Alexander assembles his team like a general preparing for war. This isn't just about his company anymore. This isn't just about clearing his name or getting his CEO position back. This is about protecting his son from a woman who's already tried to kill once and is clearly prepared to do it again. Marcus Chun becomes their financial strategist. He's been documenting Victoria's manipulations for months, tracking every falsified report, every suspicious transaction, every board vote that seemed just slightly off. Now he pulls it all together into a comprehensive case of corporate fraud that would make federal prosecutors salivate. Sarah Brennan and her team of investigators deliver their complete findings. The deleted voicemail with timestamps and metadata. The forged check receipt with handwriting analysis proving it wasn't Simone's signature. The offshore accounts where Victoria's been hiding millions. And most damning, Tommy Ricci's signed confession about tampering with Alexander's brake lines, complete with bank records showing Victoria's payment. They bring in a securities lawyer who specializes in corporate fraud, a woman named Jennifer Park who's made her reputation destroying white-collar criminals who think they're too smart to get caught. She reviews their evidence with the cold precision of a surgeon and smiles. This is enough to put her away for 25 years, Jennifer says. Maybe more if we can prove the attempted murder charge. Victoria Sterling has been very busy and very sloppy. And Simone, whose event coordinator skills might seem irrelevant in a corporate warfare context, proves invaluable in planning their counterattack. She understands timing, understands how to orchestrate multiple moving pieces into a cohesive whole, understands how to create a narrative that people will believe and remember. They have one shot at this. One moment where they can expose Victoria publicly irrefutably, in a way that she can't spin or manipulate or escape. And that moment is coming in 3 days. Victoria has called an emergency shareholders meeting to officially install herself as permanent CEO of Whitmore Industries. She's planning a coronation, a public declaration of her victory over Alexander, a moment where she solidifies her control over everything he built. Alexander plans to attend. His first public appearance since the accident. His first time facing the board and shareholders who voted him out. And he's going to burn Victoria's empire to the ground. But they need more than evidence. They need Victoria to incriminate herself publicly, on the record, in front of witnesses she can't threaten or pay off. She's arrogant, Simone says during one of their late-night planning sessions. The team gathered in Alexander's study like conspirators plotting revolution. She thinks she's already won. She thinks we're defeated. If we can get her talking, if we can make her feel safe and superior, she'll reveal herself. How do we get her talking? Marcus asks, skeptical. Victoria's too smart to confess to anything without leverage. Simone smiles, and it's a dangerous expression, the smile of a woman who's been underestimated her entire life and is about to prove everyone wrong. We give her exactly what she wants. We make her think Alexander is surrendering. The plan is risky. It requires Alexander to play the role of defeated man, to call Victoria and offer her everything she's been working toward. It requires him to sound broken enough that she believes it, but controlled enough that she doesn't suspect a trap. Alexander makes the call the next morning, his voice carefully modulated to sound tired and resigned. Victoria, it's Alexander. Oh, Alexander. Her voice on the other end is syrup-sweet, triumphant. I wasn't expecting to hear from you. Especially after that unfortunate article in the Herald. Such a shame about your reputation. You win, Alexander says, letting defeat color his tone. I'm done fighting. The company is yours. I just want peace. Silence on the other end. Victoria is calculating, trying to determine if this is genuine or a trap. What brought about this sudden change of heart? I'm tired, Victoria. I'm in a wheelchair. My reputation is destroyed. Simone is being crucified in the media. Elijah asked me yesterday why everyone hates his mother. Alexander's voice cracks, and it's not entirely acting. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep fighting you. You've won. I knew you'd see reason eventually. Victoria's triumph is audible now, her guard lowering. You were always too sentimental, Alexander. It's your greatest weakness. I have conditions. I want a settlement, enough to provide for Simone and Elijah. And I want you to leave them alone. No more media attacks. No more threats. They deserve to live in peace. Of course, Victoria purrs. I'm not a monster, Alexander. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I just want what's best for Whitmore Industries. The lie is so smooth it's almost believable. Then come to the penthouse tomorrow, Alexander says. We'll discuss terms privately before the shareholders' meeting. I'll sign whatever you want. Just leave my family alone. Victoria agrees immediately, already planning how she'll force Alexander to sign over not just his CEO position but his shares, his board seat, his legacy. Already imagining the moment when she has everything and he has nothing. She has no idea Alexander has set a trap that will destroy her completely. Victoria arrives at the penthouse the next day immaculate in a white power suit that probably costs more than most people's cars, her blonde hair perfect, her makeup flawless. She looks like victory incarnate, like a woman who's won every battle and knows it. Where's your little family? She asks, looking around the penthouse with barely concealed contempt. I sent them away, Alexander says from his wheelchair, positioned in his study behind his desk. This is between you and me, Victoria. It's always been between us. She sits across from him in the client chair, confident and cruel, crossing her legs and smiling like a predator that's cornered its prey. You should have chosen me 8 years ago, Alexander. None of this would have been necessary. Necessary? Alexander keeps his voice neutral, but his hands are gripping his wheelchair armrests so tightly his knuckles are white. You mean destroying my relationship with Simone? Stealing my company? Trying to kill me? Victoria laughs, and it's a cold, beautiful sound, the laugh of someone who believes they're untouchable. Trying? Oh, Alexander. If I'd wanted you dead, you'd be dead. Putting you in a wheelchair was far more poetic, don't you think? You get to watch while I take everything you built. You get to sit there, helpless and crippled, while I become everything you should have been. Why? The question comes out raw, genuine. Why did you do all of this? Because you're weak. Victoria leans forward, her mask slipping to reveal the monster she's always been underneath. Because you fell in love with a nobody. Because when I returned from London 8 years ago, ready to step into my role as your wife, ready to help you build an empire, I found you obsessed with some assistant who couldn't tell a dividend from a debenture. Her voice rises with 8 years of accumulated rage. I built you up, Alexander. I positioned myself perfectly. I studied business, I made connections, I prepared myself to be the perfect partner for a man like you. And then you threw it all away for her. For some black girl from Roxbury who had nothing to offer you but a pretty face and a willingness to spread her legs. The racism in her voice is casual, thoughtless, the kind that comes from someone who's never had to examine their own prejudices. Simone, listening from the next room with the police detectives, feels rage so hot it threatens to consume her. So you destroyed us, Alexander says flatly. I saved you from yourself. Victoria's smile is poison. The pregnancy was unfortunate, but manageable. I convinced your mother she was a threat. I deleted the voicemail before you could hear her pathetic little confession. I forged the check receipt and fed you the story about her taking money and running. It was almost too easy, Alexander. You wanted to believe she betrayed you because it was easier than fighting your family for her. And the car accident? Victoria's smile widens, becomes something terrible. You were getting too close to discovering my financial arrangements. I'd been moving money for years, preparing for the inevitable day when I'd take control. You started asking Marcus questions about offshore accounts, about consulting fees that didn't quite add up. You were too smart for your own good. She leans back, relaxed now, enjoying her confession. The brake line failure was elegant, really. It should have killed you instantly. High speed, no brakes, that curve on the highway where you always drove too fast. You should have died, Alexander. The wheelchair was an unexpected complication. But a useful one. Oh, absolutely. Made you look weak. Made the board doubt you. Made everyone see you as damaged goods instead of the golden heir. The wheelchair was a gift, actually. Better than death, because it let me watch you suffer. You're confessing to attempted murder. Victoria laughs again. Who's going to believe you? A crippled, heartbroken CEO whose judgment is clearly impaired versus the woman who's been running his company successfully for 6 months? Please, Alexander. You're pathetic. She pulls out a document from her briefcase, slides it across the desk. Now sign this. It transfers all your shares to me, removes you from the board, terminates any claim you have to Whitmore Industries. Sign it, and I'll leave your little bastard and his gold-digging mother alone. And if I don't? Victoria's expression goes cold, dead, terrifying in its lack of humanity. Then I'll ensure Elijah has a very unfortunate accident. Children are so fragile, Alexander. They get sick. They fall. They disappear. It would be tragic, of course. But these things happen. You'd threaten my son? I'm not threatening. I'm promising. Victoria leans forward, her voice dropping to something intimate and horrible. Sign the document, or watch your illegitimate child disappear. Those are your options. That won't be necessary. Simone steps out from the adjacent room, her phone in hand, the recording app visible on the screen. Behind her, 2 Boston police detectives enter, their badges visible, their expressions professionally neutral. Victoria's face goes white. Actually white, all the color draining like someone pulled a plug. You recorded me. Every single word, Alexander says, and his voice is cold satisfaction. Fraud. Embezzlement. Attempted murder. Conspiracy. And threatening a child. You just confessed to all of it, Victoria. On tape. In front of witnesses. The detectives approach, and one of them begins reading Victoria her rights. Victoria Sterling, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit fraud, embezzlement, and making terroristic threats. You have the right to remain silent. As they handcuff her, Victoria's perfect facade crumbles completely. She screams, threatens, promises to destroy them all with lawyers and money and influence. She calls Simone names that make the detectives wince. She tells Alexander he's nothing without her, that he'll lose everything, that she'll make sure they both pay for this humiliation. But Alexander just watches, calm and controlled, as the woman who tried to destroy his life is finally held accountable for her crimes. You lose, Victoria, he says quietly. You lose everything. Your freedom. Your reputation. Your future. All of it. And we're going to make sure everyone knows exactly what you are. As the detectives lead her away, still screaming threats and obscenities, Simone moves to Alexander's side. They don't touch, don't embrace, just stand together watching Victoria Sterling's empire collapse in real time. It's over, Simone whispers. No, Alexander says. It's just beginning. 2 days later, Alexander enters the Whitmore Industries boardroom for the first time since the accident. The shareholders meeting Victoria called to crown herself CEO has become something else entirely. An accounting. A reckoning. A restoration. The shareholders and board members murmur as Alexander wheels himself to the head of the conference table, to the position that's always been his. Some look ashamed. Others look relieved. A few look angry, though whether at Victoria for her deception or at themselves for being fooled, it's hard to say. Marcus Chun sits at Alexander's right hand, where he's always belonged. Catherine Whitmore sits 3 seats down, her presence a statement of family support. Jennifer Park, the securities lawyer, sits nearby with boxes of evidence stacked beside her chair. Victoria Sterling will not be joining us today, Alexander begins without preamble. She's been arrested for fraud, embezzlement, attempted murder, and conspiracy. The evidence has been submitted to federal prosecutors, and I'm told the case is airtight. Shocked silence. Even the board members who voted against Victoria look stunned by the comprehensive nature of her crimes. For the past 6 months, I've been healing. Not just physically, but emotionally. Alexander's voice is steady, strong, the voice of a man who's fought his way back from destruction. I discovered I have a son. A 7-year-old boy I never knew existed because Victoria Sterling manipulated both his mother and me with lies and fabrication. He clicks a remote, and the screen behind him lights up with evidence. The deleted voicemail with timestamps. The forged check receipt with handwriting analysis. Bank records showing offshore accounts. Tommy Ricci's signed confession. Catherine's recording where Victoria admits to attempted murder. Victoria didn't just betray me personally, Alexander continues. She betrayed this company. She betrayed every person in this room. She betrayed the employees who trusted her. She betrayed the legacy 3 generations of Whitmores built. Marcus stands, picks up where Alexander leaves off with the financial details. I've completed a comprehensive audit of the past 3 years. Victoria embezzled $47 million through fake vendor contracts, ghost employees, and inflated consulting fees. She manipulated quarterly financial reports to hide the theft. She falsified performance metrics to make Alexander's pre-accident decisions look reckless and her own leadership look stellar. He pulls up more documents on the screen. She was also planning to sell major company assets to overseas investors at 30% below market value. Those investors would have paid her kickbacks totaling approximately $60 million. She was preparing to asset strip Whitmore Industries while positioning herself as the savior who kept the company stable. The room explodes with questions, with anger, with demands for more information. Board members who voted to remove Alexander look sick. Shareholders are calculating how much money they almost lost. Everyone is trying to process the magnitude of Victoria's betrayal. Alexander waits for the chaos to subside, then continues. I'm not asking to be reinstated as CEO. I'm telling you I'm back. This is my company. I built Whitmore Industries from a $50 million tech startup into a $3 billion empire in 10 years. I navigated the 2008 recession without laying off a single employee. I pioneered innovations that changed our industry. One car accident, one manipulative criminal, doesn't erase what I've accomplished. One of the board members who voted against him raises his hand. Alexander, we need to vote on your reinstatement. There are procedures. We already have, Catherine Whitmore says, standing from her seat with aristocratic authority. As the single largest shareholder of Whitmore Industries, controlling 35% of company stock, I'm exercising my right to appoint my son as CEO. I'm doing so publicly, on the record, with full confidence that this board will support him. She looks around the room, meeting each board member's eyes. And if you don't support him, if you choose to side with the woman who embezzled millions and tried to murder my son, then I'll use my shares to call for your removal. Every single one of you. One by one, the board members stand. Some look relieved to have an excuse to reverse their earlier vote. Others look genuinely ashamed of doubting Alexander. A few look angry but resigned to political reality. The vote, when it comes, is unanimous. Alexander Whitmore is reinstated as CEO of Whitmore Industries, effective immediately. Marcus Chun leads the applause, and it's genuine this time, not the polite corporate clapping of obligatory ritual. These people remember what Alexander built. They remember the man he was before the accident. And they're grateful to have him back. After the meeting ends, after the shareholders file out and the board members shake Alexander's hand and promise renewed loyalty, Marcus stays behind. "Welcome back, boss," he says quietly. "It's good to be back," Alexander responds. "Thank you for not giving up on me. You're my friend before you're my boss. I was never going to give up on you." They clasp hands, and it's more than professional courtesy. It's brotherhood forged in corporate warfare and survived betrayal. Months pass, and slowly, painfully, beautifully, the pieces of their shattered lives come back together. Alexander's physical therapy intensifies. He's always been competitive, always pushed himself harder than doctors recommend, but now he has a reason beyond pride. He has a son who wants to play basketball, who wants to go hiking, who deserves a father who can participate in his life instead of just watching from a wheelchair. The progress is slow. Some days he can walk with braces and canes, taking painful, deliberate steps that leave him exhausted. Other days the pain is too much and he needs the wheelchair. His doctors are cautiously optimistic about continued improvement, but honest about limitations. He'll probably never walk without assistance. He'll probably always need mobility aids. But he's defying their initial prognosis, which said he'd never walk at all. More importantly, he's building a relationship with his son that goes beyond his physical limitations. Elijah doesn't care whether his father walks or rolls. He cares that his father shows up. That he's present. That he's trying. They go to Celtics games together, Alexander in accessible seating, Elijah beside him explaining plays and player statistics with encyclopedic knowledge. They build robots in Alexander's study, complicated engineering projects that challenge them both. Alexander teaches Elijah about business through kid-friendly ventures, helping him start a lemonade stand that becomes legendary in Boston's financial district when Elijah shows up with a typed business plan, profit projections, and marketing strategy. "He's 7, one of Alexander's business associates says, watching Elijah negotiate bulk pricing on lemons with the seriousness of a corporate executive. "He's a Whitmore," Alexander responds with pride so fierce it's almost painful. Simone watches her two favorite people bond, watches 8 years of absence compress into intensive connection, and feels her carefully constructed walls continue to crumble. She's not ready to forgive Alexander completely, not ready to forget the years she spent alone and terrified. But she's learning to trust again, learning to believe that maybe, possibly, they can build something real from the wreckage of Victoria's manipulation. They take it slow. Dinner dates where they actually talk, actually learn who they've become in 8 years apart. Long conversations about everything they missed, about the people they were and the people they've become. Therapy sessions, both individual and together, unpacking the trauma Victoria inflicted on them both. "I don't want to rush this," Simone tells him one evening after Elijah has gone to bed, the two of them sitting on Alexander's balcony overlooking the harbor. "We're not the same people we were 8 years ago." "No," Alexander agrees. "We are better. Stronger. We've both survived things that should have broken us. I'm terrified of trusting you again." "I know." He reaches for her hand, and she lets him take it. "I'm terrified of failing you again. Of not being enough. Of letting you down when you need me most. What if it doesn't work? What if we try and it falls apart?" "Then at least we tried," Alexander says quietly. "At least we didn't let Victoria win by staying apart. At least we gave Elijah the chance to have both his parents together, trying to build something real." Simone leans against him, and they sit in comfortable silence watching the city lights reflect off the water. It's not perfect. They're not healed. But they're here together, fighting for a future that Victoria tried to destroy. "I love you," Alexander says. "I should have said it 8 years ago. I should have fought for you then instead of believing lies. But I'm saying it now. I love you, Simone Carter. I've always loved you." "I love you too," Simone whispers. "We're going to make this work. We're going to build the family we should have had 8 years ago." "We already are," Alexander says, and kisses her like a promise. Victoria's trial becomes Boston's most sensational court case in decades. The media that destroyed Simone's reputation with Victoria's leaked article now turns its attention to Victoria herself, and the coverage is brutal. Every day brings new revelations. The embezzlement is worse than initial audits suggested. The offshore accounts contain evidence of other crimes, other victims. Victoria's carefully constructed facade of respectability crumbles to reveal a woman who's been lying and stealing and manipulating for years. Catherine Whitmore takes the stand and testifies about the 8-year conspiracy, about how Victoria manipulated her into destroying Alexander's relationship with Simone. Her testimony is devastating, a society matriarch admitting publicly that she was fooled, that she participated in tearing apart her son's family based on lies. Tommy Ricci testifies about tampering with Alexander's brake lines, about the payment Victoria made, about the guilt he's carried for 6 months believing he'd killed someone. His testimony is simple, direct, impossible to discredit. The prosecutors play Catherine's recording where Victoria admits to attempted murder and threatens Elijah. They play Alexander's recording where Victoria confesses to everything. They present bank records, forged documents, testimony from dozens of witnesses who saw Victoria's crimes unfold in real time. Victoria's defense team tries everything. They claim temporary insanity brought on by unrequited love. They suggest Alexander manipulated evidence, that he's a spurned lover seeking revenge. They hint that Catherine is lying to protect her son. They even try to suggest that Simone coached Alexander, that this whole prosecution is a conspiracy by a gold-digging woman who wants to eliminate competition for the Whitmore fortune. Nothing works. The evidence is too comprehensive, too well documented, too damning. Victoria herself takes the stand against her lawyer's advice, convinced she can charm the jury the way she's charmed everyone else her entire life. But under cross-examination, her mask slips. Her racism surfaces. Her contempt for anyone she considers beneath her becomes obvious. She can't help but reveal exactly who she is, and the jury sees it all. The jury deliberates for 3 hours. When they return, their faces are grim. Guilty on all counts. Fraud. Embezzlement. Attempted murder. Conspiracy. making terroristic threats. Every single charge. The judge, a woman in her 60s who's presided over hundreds of cases, looks at Victoria with something like disgust. Miss Sterling, you were given every advantage in life. Wealth, education, opportunity. And you used those advantages to lie, steal, and attempt to murder. You destroyed families. You threatened a child. You showed no remorse, no humanity, no recognition that other people matter beyond how they serve your ambitions. She pauses, letting the words settle. I'm sentencing you to 25 years in federal prison without possibility of parole for the first 8 years. You'll serve this sentence in a maximum security facility. And when you're eventually released, assuming you survive your sentence, you'll spend the rest of your life as a convicted felon, unable to work in finance, unable to hold corporate positions, unable to reclaim even a fraction of what you threw away. As the bailiffs lead Victoria away in handcuffs and an orange jumpsuit that's nothing like her designer wardrobe, she looks at Alexander one last time. Her eyes are hollow, defeated, but still trying to manipulate. I loved you, she says. Everything I did was because I loved you. Alexander's response is quiet but absolute. That wasn't love, Victoria. Love doesn't destroy. Love doesn't manipulate. Love doesn't try to murder. What you felt was obsession and entitlement. You wanted to own me, to control me, to shape me into what you thought I should be. But you never loved me. You don't know how. Simone watches Victoria disappear through the courthouse doors and feels something release in her chest. 8 years of anger, of fear, of carrying the weight of lies and manipulation. It all lifts, and what's left is lighter, cleaner, free. 6 months after Victoria's conviction, on a crisp Boston autumn evening when the leaves are turning gold and red and the harbor reflects sunset colors, Alexander takes Simone and Elijah to the hospital where their story began. Why are we here? Elijah asks, confused but excited because his father has been mysterious about this trip all day. Because this is where our family began again, Alexander says. He's walking today. With canes, moving slowly, each step requiring concentration and effort. But walking. His physical therapist said it might never happen, but Alexander has always been stubborn about impossible things. They returned to the corridor where Elijah first approached a stranger in a wheelchair 8 months ago. The same polished floors. The same antiseptic smell. But everything is different now. 8 months ago, I was sitting in a wheelchair thinking my life was over, Alexander says, positioned in the exact spot where Elijah found him. I'd lost everything. My ability to walk. My company. My purpose. I was ready to give up. He looks at his son, and his eyes are bright with emotion. And then a 7-year-old boy walked up to me and asked if I was his daddy. That question changed everything. It gave me a reason to fight. It brought me back to the woman I never stopped loving. It gave me a family I didn't know I had. Elijah grins, proud of his role in their story. Simone Carter, Alexander continues, turning to face her. We lost 8 years because other people lied to us. Because we let fear and pride and family expectations keep us apart. I don't want to lose another day. He lowers himself carefully to one knee, using his canes for support. It's a movement that takes immense effort, that causes visible pain, but he does it anyway because some moments require traditional gestures. From his pocket, he pulls out a ring box. Inside is a diamond that catches the hospital's fluorescent lights and transforms them into something beautiful. You are the strongest, most resilient, most beautiful woman I've ever known, Alexander says, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. You raised our son alone through circumstances that would have broken most people. You survived betrayal and heartbreak and built a life from nothing. You came back when you had every reason to stay away, and you helped me fight when I'd almost given up. His voice breaks slightly. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life making up for the 8 years we lost? Will you build this family with me, officially, legally, permanently? Simone's tears are falling freely, and she doesn't try to stop them. Alexander. Say yes, Mom. Elijah stage whispers, bouncing on his toes. We talked about this. You're supposed to say yes. Simone laughs through her tears. You two planned this behind my back. I asked for his permission, Alexander admits. He's my partner in this. Elijah, come here. Elijah moves to his father's side, and Alexander pulls out a second, smaller box. Inside is a silver chain with a pendant that reads Whitmore in elegant script. "This was my grandfather's," Alexander tells his son. "It's been passed down for 3 generations. My grandfather wore it. My father wore it. I wore it until the accident. And now it's yours. Because you're a Whitmore, Elijah. You're my son. And if your mom says yes, we'll make everything official." Elijah's eyes go wide as Alexander fastens the chain around his neck. "I'm really a Whitmore now?" "You always were," Alexander says. "But now everyone will know it." Elijah throws his arms around his father's neck, nearly knocking him off balance, and Alexander hugs him back with fierce love while trying to maintain his precarious kneeling position. "We're a real family now?" Elijah asks. "We've always been a real family," Simone says, kneeling beside them both on the hospital floor. "But yes, baby. We can make it official." She looks at Alexander, at this man who's fought his way back from destruction, who's proven his love through actions instead of just words. "Yes. I'll marry you. Not because you're rich or because you're Elijah's father, but because I love you. I've always loved you, even when I tried not to." Alexander kisses her, tender and full of promise, while their son cheers and hospital staff who've gathered to watch applaud. Some of them remember the scene from 8 months ago, the reunion that started this whole journey, and they're crying too because happy endings are rare in hospitals and this one feels earned. 3 months later, they marry in a ceremony that's nothing like what Victoria would have planned. No society wedding with 500 guests and a 12-tier cake. No photographers from Vogue or Boston Magazine. Just family, close friends, and the people who matter most. The ceremony takes place in a small chapel overlooking Boston Harbor, intimate and warm and full of love instead of obligation. Elijah is the ring bearer, wearing a suit that makes him look like a miniature executive, beaming with pride at his crucial role. He takes his job seriously, walking down the aisle with measured steps, the ring secured on a pillow he holds like it contains the crown jewels. Catherine is there, seated in the front row, tissues already in hand because she's been crying since the morning. She's still working to earn back the trust she destroyed, still proving through actions that she's changed. But Simone invited her because Elijah loves his grandmother, and because forgiveness, real forgiveness, means giving people the chance to do better. Marcus Chun is Alexander's best man, standing beside him at the altar with quiet pride. Simone's best friend Maria, whose wedding brought Simone back to Boston and accidentally triggered this entire chain of events, is maid of honor. The officiant is a woman who specializes in non-traditional ceremonies, who understands that this isn't just a wedding but a restoration, a family being made whole after years of fracture. When it's time for Simone to walk down the aisle, she does so without anyone giving her away because she's not property to be transferred from one man to another. She walks alone, confident and beautiful in a simple ivory dress that doesn't try to pretend she's a virginal bride. She's a woman, a mother, someone who's survived and rebuilt and earned her place here. Alexander stands at the altar, actually stands, using his canes for support but standing, and watches her approach. His eyes never leave her face. He's memorizing this moment, burning it into memory to replace all the moments they missed. They exchange vows they wrote themselves, words that acknowledge their complicated history while promising a better future. "I promise to fight for us," Alexander says, his voice carrying through the small chapel. "To choose you every day, even when it's hard. To be the father Elijah deserves and the husband you've always deserved. To never let anyone come between us again. To trust you even when I'm scared. To believe in us even when it seems impossible." "I promise to trust you," Simone responds, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "To let go of the past and build our future. To be your partner in everything, in business, in family, in life. To love you through the hard days and celebrate the good ones. To never let fear make me run away again." When the officiant says they may kiss, Alexander pulls Simone close and kisses her like she's oxygen and he's been drowning. The chapel erupts in applause, but neither of them hears it. They're lost in each other, in this moment, in the future they're building together. At the reception, held in a private room at the same restaurant where Alexander and Simone had their first date 9 years ago, Elijah gives a speech that's supposed to be cute but turns profound. He stands on a chair so everyone can see him, microphone in hand, suddenly shy in front of the crowd. Alexander gives him an encouraging nod, and Elijah takes a breath and begins. My teacher asked us to write about heroes for homework, he says, his 7-year-old voice clear and serious. I wrote about my dad. Not because he's rich or because he runs a big company, but because he got hurt really bad and couldn't walk, and everyone said he was done, but he kept fighting. He pauses, looking at Alexander. And because when he found out about me, he didn't run away. He didn't say I was too much trouble or he didn't have time. He became my dad for real. He comes to my school stuff and helps with my homework and teaches me about business and plays chess with me even when his back hurts. Another pause, this time looking at Simone. And because he loves my mom enough to stand up even when it hurts. To fight for us even when it would be easier to give up. That's what heroes do. They fight for the people they love. There's not a dry eye in the room. Catherine is openly sobbing. Marcus is wiping his eyes with his napkin. Even the waitstaff look emotional. Elijah raises his water glass. So here's to my mom and dad. I'm really glad they found each other again. And I'm really glad I get to be part of this family. Everyone raises their glasses, and the toast is drunk with more emotion than champagne should carry. Later, as Simone and Alexander dance their first dance as husband and wife, him leaning on her for support, both of them swaying slowly to a song about second chances, she whispers, "Do you think we would have made it if Victoria hadn't torn us apart?" Alexander considers the question seriously. I don't know. Maybe we needed to be broken to learn how to be strong. Maybe we needed to lose each other to understand what we have. No regrets. Only one, he says quietly. That Elijah spent 7 years without his father. That he had to grow up wondering why I wasn't there, believing I didn't want him. Everything else, the pain, the struggle, even the wheelchair, brought us here. But those 7 years with our son? Those are gone forever. We'll make up for it, Simone promises. We'll give him so much love he'll never doubt again that he's wanted. We already are, Alexander says, looking across the dance floor where Elijah is attempting to teach his grandmother how to do the floss, both of them laughing. The Whitmore family, broken and reassembled, stronger for having been shattered. Sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about perfect beginnings. They're not about meet cuties and smooth sailing and happily ever after without struggle. Sometimes the greatest love stories are about fighting your way back to each other through wreckage and lies and heartbreak. About refusing to let other people's cruelty define your future. About building something real from the ruins of what was stolen. Simone and Alexander lost 8 years. 8 years of memories they'll never make, of moments with their son they can never reclaim. Birthdays and first days of school and childhood milestones that happened without Alexander there. Those years are gone, erased by Victoria's manipulation and family pride and their own failure to trust each other over the lies they were told. But they gained something more valuable. They gained the knowledge that their love was strong enough to survive destruction. That even separated, even believing the worst of each other, even after 8 years of pain and anger, the connection between them never truly died. It waited, dormant but alive, for the moment when truth could break through the lies. Victoria Sterling is serving 25 years in federal prison. Her empire of deception collapsed completely. She'll spend those years in a cell instead of a corner office, wearing orange jumpsuits instead of designer suits, stripped of everything she valued. Power, status, freedom, all gone. And when she's eventually released, decades older and forever marked as a felon, she'll step into a world that's moved on without her. Catherine Whitmore is rebuilding her relationship with the grandson and daughter-in-law she almost destroyed. It's slow work, earned through consistent action rather than words. Weekly dinners where she's learning who Elijah really is beyond Whitmore expectations. Conversations with Simone where she's facing the damage her prejudice and pride inflicted. Therapy to unpack why she valued reputation over her son's happiness. She'll probably never fully redeem herself in Simone's eyes, and maybe that's fair. But she's trying, and sometimes trying is enough. And Elijah James Carter Whitmore is growing up with both parents, in a home filled with love and laughter and second chances. He's learning that families come in all configurations, that love is more important than biology or timing, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask a simple question that everyone else is too afraid to voice. Alexander never fully regains his ability to walk without assistance. Some days are wheelchair days. Some days are cane days. Some days are better than others. But he learns something more important than mobility. He learns that strength isn't about standing on your own 2 feet. It's about who stands beside you when you can't. It's about accepting help without shame. It's about redefining what success means beyond physical capability. 6 months after the wedding, Simone gives birth to a daughter they name Grace. Grace Catherine Whitmore, after the virtue that brought them back together and the grandmother who's working to earn redemption. She's born healthy and loud and absolutely perfect, with Simone's warm brown skin and Alexander's blue eyes and a cry that suggests she'll never let anyone ignore her. Elijah holds his baby sister with the careful seriousness of an 8-year-old entrusted with something precious, and whispers, "I'm going to protect you. I'm going to make sure nobody ever lies to you or tries to keep our family apart. You're a Whitmore, and Whitmores take care of each other." And every year, on the anniversary of that hospital corridor reunion, they return to the spot where everything changed. Where a 7-year-old boy asked a simple question that rewrote 3 lives. They bring their children, Elijah and Grace, and eventually 2 more, twins named Hope and Justice because Simone believes in naming children after concepts that matter. They stand in that corridor and tell the story. How Mommy was there for work. How Daddy was in a wheelchair feeling sorry for himself. How Elijah saw his mother's face and followed her gaze and decided that truth mattered more than fear. "Are you my daddy?" The question that started everything. And Alexander tells his children, every single year, that yes, he's their daddy. That being a father isn't about biology or timing or perfection. It's about showing up. It's about fighting for your family even when it's hard. It's about choosing love over pride and truth over comfortable lies. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk up to the truth, even when you're 7 years old and everyone around you is too scared to speak. Sometimes the bravest thing is asking the question everyone else is avoiding. Sometimes the bravest thing is believing that family can be found even in the most unlikely places. And sometimes, just sometimes, the answer to that question changes not just 1 life, but 3, then 4, then 6. Then generations of Whitmores who grow up knowing that their family was built on courage and truth, and a little boy who refused to let his parents stay broken. This is the story of Simone, Alexander, and Elijah. A family torn apart by lies and brought back together by love. A family that proves redemption is possible. A family that shows second chances are real. Have you ever gotten a second chance with someone you thought you'd lost forever? Have you ever discovered that the story you believed about your life was based on lies? Have you ever found the courage to ask the question everyone else is avoiding? Type second chance in the comments if you believe in fighting for love, no matter how broken it seems. Type truth if you believe honesty always wins eventually. Type courage if you've ever had to be brave like Elijah, facing down the unknown because staying silent hurt more. And if this story moved you, if you felt Simone's pain or Alexander's redemption or Elijah's innocent courage, hit that like button. Subscribe to Mr. Harrington Stories because we tell the complicated, messy, beautiful stories about love and family and second chances. We don't do perfect fairy tales here. We do real life, with all its heartbreak and triumph. Until next time, remember this. The truth always has a way of coming out. Lies can last for years, but truth is patient. It waits. And when it finally breaks through, it changes everything. Sometimes the family you thought you lost was just waiting for the right moment to come home. Sometimes the love you thought was dead was just sleeping, waiting for someone brave enough to wake it up. Sometimes all it takes is one child asking one simple question to tear down 8 years of lies and build something real in their place. May your week be filled with unexpected reunions, with hard-earned forgiveness, with the courage to face whatever truths you've been avoiding, with the strength to rebuild what's been broken, with the wisdom to know that second chances are gifts, not guarantees, and they require work and trust and faith. This is Mr. Harrington Stories, signing off. See you next time with another story of love, betrayal, and the families that refuse to stay broken.